Thank you for joining me. I am a volunteer researcher for the JFK Assassination and Information Center in Dallas, and I specialize in personal witness interviews. I try to stay focused on facts relating to the assassination of John F. Kennedy, and even though the evidence you're about to see are definite facts, they are not 100% conclusive. In any homicide investigation, especially in this case, where many years have elapsed, it is very hard to prove something beyond a shadow of a doubt. At the end of this program, I would like to pay a special tribute to the many authors in the early years who have brought forward information pertaining to this subject. As many of you are aware, there was an investigation immediately following the assassination. A Dallas patrolman, J.W. Foster, who was standing on the triple underpass overlooking Elm Street with the railroad workers, eventually made his way over to the south side of Elm Street, where he would later tell the Warren Commission, quote, to see if I could find where any of the shots hit, unquote. The Warren Commission lawyer, Joseph Ball, asked Foster if he found anything, and Patrolman Foster replied, quote, yes sir, found where one shot had hit the turf there at the location. They caught the manhole cover right at the corner, unquote. In July of 1991, I interviewed J.W. Foster, and he confirmed his Warren Commission testimony in a videotaped interview. Okay, and according to your Warren Commission testimony, you saw where a shot had hit the turf on the south side of Elm Street?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you said that the shot had caught the manhole cover at the corner?
The concrete of the manhole cover, yes.
Okay. Foster was joined by Deputy Sheriff E.R. Buddy Walthers, and Walthers began to inspect the area. They were joined by another man who at that time was not identified, and there were two photographers who took a series of photographs of this investigation by the name of Murray and Allen. Let's take a look at these photographs. These photographs show the investigation just minutes after the assassination. The mystery man bends down to reach for something, and regardless of what it was, we have not seen any report of what was recovered. Hours after most people had left, a group of men were huddled by the manhole cover as shown here. Why was the investigation so secret? And what clues do we have to identify the mystery man? One clue was published in Dallas Police Chief Jesse Curry's Assassination Files. On page 46, Chief Curry wrote, an FBI agent, Deputy Sheriff Walthers, and a Dallas police officer inspect the area for bullet fragments. And thanks to eyewitness Malcolm Summers, who put me in touch with Buddy Walthers' partner, former Deputy Sheriff Al Maddox, confirmed Chief Curry's statement in a videotape presentation at the JFK Center. Right here? You have any idea?
This man right here is an FBI agent, I promise you. Because at the time, Buddy told me who he was. Buddy knew him. Buddy Walthers knew who he was.
Is there any truth to it? In the November 23rd evening edition of the 1963 Fort Worth Star-Telegram reported assassin's bullet. One of the rifle bullets fired by the murderer of President Kennedy lies in the grass across Elm Street from the building in which the killer was hiding and from where he launched his assault. Also, in the Dallas Times-Herald, November 24, 1963, reported Dallas Police Lieutenant J.C. Day of the Crime Lab estimated the distance from the sixth-floor easternmost window the slayer used to the spot where one of the bullets was recovered at 100 yards. This document was brought forward by researcher Stan Walters. In a telephone interview, I spoke with Buddy Walters' widow and asked her about the man with her husband, and she remarked, quote, "You mean the man who picked up the bullet?" End quote. I have not yet been successful in coordinating a videotaped interview with her at this time. Also, in a telephone interview with Deputy Sheriff Al Maddox, he told me that a bullet was picked up on the south side of Elm Street and reiterated the same at dinner before our presentation at the JFK Assassination and Information Center in Dallas. This is a photo of Deputy Sheriff Al Maddox standing behind Lieutenant Day on November 22, 1963, and through his help, he put me in touch with a well-known FBI agent who does not want his name mentioned and who told me who this mystery man was. At this point, my friend and colleague, Stan Serzan, worked with me step for step in locating this man, and we virtually acquired the information at the same time. The name that the FBI agent gave me without hesitation was Dallas Special Agent Robert M. Barrett. He had worked on several commission exhibits and had personally investigated the mark in the grass as reported by Mr. and Mrs. Hartman, whom I interviewed in July of 1991. This is a 1990 photograph of Mr. Robert Barrett, and in June of 1992 I called Mr. Barrett to try to get a description of him, as he was in 1963, and told him that I collected autographs from witnesses and police, which is true. He did match the general description of the man in the photographs, and when I asked him the color of his hair in 1963, he remarked, quote, "Light sandy colored, but it's definitely gray now," end quote. I also asked Mr. Barrett what side he parted his hair, and he told me, quote, "On the left side," end quote. So I asked Mr. Barrett if he would autograph some photos that I thought I had of him, and I sent them in the mail, and within 7 days I got the photos back unsigned and my original letter that I had sent Mr. Barrett with this note attached to it. The note reads, "Mark, this is a photo of me. Sorry, yours truly, Bob Barrett." Totally confused on how a man of his background could make a mistake like that, I called Mr. Barrett to ask him about the note, and this was his reply.
Hello? Yes, ma'am. Please speak with Mr. Barrett. Just a minute. Bob?
Yeah.
For you?
Hello?
Hi, Mr. Barrett?
Yeah.
Hi, this is Mark Oakes. How are you?
Fine.
I just wanted to thank you for sending that back so quick. I was hoping that you'd keep that autograph of Al Maddox just as like a souvenir, but I was just confused about your note. It says, this is a photo of me.
I should have said it's not.
Pardon?
I should have said it's not. I just misworded that. It's not a photograph of me.
Oh, it's not a photo. Oh, I see. Do you know by any chance who?
That was the slightest idea. I've never seen that photograph before.
I also asked Mr. Barrett why he was at the arrest of Lee Harvey Oswald at the Texas Theater, and this is what he replied.
It's just a reference point, but you did say that you were involved in the arrest of Oswald at the theater?
Right.
And you had to sign a report or something?
No, I'll make sure the report was correct.
Oh, you made sure the report.
I helped the officers write the report and make sure it was correct. Oswald was screaming that civil rights being violated, and I would, as a government agent who would probably investigate it,
Yeah.
was there to make
make sure that it was written in such a way that it could not be construed as any violation of civil rights.
Did you get a radio call to go over to the theater, or do you remember?
I was at the Tippett shooting, and we heard that there had been suspicious characters going to the theater.
Oh, I see.
This is a 1950 photograph of Robert Barrett in black and white that was brought forward by Stan Srzan. Later, researcher Jerry Robertson acquired a better copy and sent this to me. Even though this is an old black and white photo, 1950 photo of Robert Barrett, at the last Dallas Symposium, I talked to photo specialist Jack White, who told me that there were some similarities. I was not satisfied with Mr. Barrett's explanation. I should have said it's not. And I also knew from speaking to Mr. Barrett that Mr. Robert Gimberling was not only a personal friend of Mr. Barrett's, but was also his supervisor in Dallas in 1963. Before the Dallas Symposium of 1992, I went down to speak to Mr. Gimberling to relate to him what my discovery was, and in this videotaped interview, you will see what he had to say about my discovery. Mr. Gimberling, there was something that I was asked to do as a favor to a former deputy sheriff, and his partner for a period of time after the assassination was a man by the name of E.R. Buddy Walthers, and they had some photographs of a patrolman, Joe Foster, over on the south side of Elm Street that went over there to investigate that area to see if he could see anything. And eventually Al Maddox's partner, Buddy Walthers, had come over there, and another man had joined them to take part in the investigation. And a lot of people have wondered who the person was, not necessarily what they were doing, because it has been written that they were investigating the area and performing their duties. But I wanted to show you this picture, and through tracing it, I had found out who the person was. And see if you could look at that, please. And the man that I contacted was a man that also worked for the FBI in 1963, and had since, at a period of time after that, had moved or transferred. And the man that I contacted said that it was him, that was a picture of him, and that person's name was Robert Barrett. And then I'd just like to show you this as a confirmation that he sent me. And I was wondering if you had any information or an opinion as to whether that might possibly resemble Mr. Barrett, and if you knew him personally.
This is not the first time I've seen this picture. Bob Barrett and Ivan Lee were two agents that worked closely together and were responsible for a section of the first report I wrote in November 30th of '63, which was about a multiple page section containing photographs of all of the various locations of Oswald's escape route from the Texas School Book building. And they both worked on that, and I know Bob Barrett very well. Now, this picture was shown to me, or was sent to me in a magazine, and I was not positive. It was a smaller, but it did look like Bob Barrett. And I was never interviewed by anybody then as to whether it was Bob Barrett or not, although Ike Lee sent it to me. And Ike said, "You'll probably be contacted." I never was. Ike did not say it was Bob Barrett. He more or less left it up to me. Now, when I look at this picture, before you even mentioned that Bob Barrett had said it was him, I think I mentioned to you earlier that of all the agents I knew that worked on the case, it resembles Bob Barrett, although I know he parted his hair on the left side, and his hair was similar to that. And I would say that it very possibly is Bob Barrett.
Mr. Barrett was a special agent of the FBI also,
Yes.
and he was involved in several commission exhibits, checking out various information and certain things. And I believe he told me he was at the arrest of Oswald and was checking out the report that the officers had written to make sure that Oswald's civil rights weren't violated and it could not be construed as
He was at the scene of the arrest, yes.
arrest. And after that videotaped interview, less than 20 days later, Mr. Gimberling sent me this letter reversing his statements and retracting his statements that he made in my videotaped interview, with a copy sent to Mr. Robert Barrett. This is yet another 1950 graduation photo of Mr. Robert Barrett that was brought forward by researcher Jerry Robertson. It is still 13 years before 1963, and Stan and I are presently trying to secure a 1963 photograph of Robert Barrett. As a footnote, this document that was brought forward by researcher Dale Myers and was given to me by researcher Todd Vaughn shows that Robert Barrett was in Dealey Plaza on November 22nd, 1963, right after the assassination. This document pertains to his investigation of the Patsy Paschal film that was given to him by Patsy's lawyer, Mr. Bruner. And as you can see, there is a blackened out section here that we'd be very interested to find out what is in that. But this is a document pertaining to Mr. Barrett being in Dealey Plaza, in which he noticed himself and saw himself in the film before he gave the film back to Patsy's lawyer. This is yet another document brought forward by the JFK Assassination and Information Center in Dallas that shows that Robert Barrett was in Dealey Plaza before he went to the Tippit shooting and the arrest of Lee Harvey Oswald on November 22nd, 1963. On the lighter side, I would like to leave you of two eyewitnesses that was in my eyewitness video, former Deputy Sheriff Al Maddox and Beverly Oliver, when they found out that they were cousins at the last symposium in Dallas in October of '92 at the Dealey Plaza event on Sunday. Now, Beverly, what was that about being cousins?
About being what?
Cousins?
Cousins?
Yeah.
I'm kissing cousins.
Kissy cousin? We are here with Beverly Oliver, who has just found out minutes ago.
No, I knew it. He didn't know.
He didn't know it. We have a correction here.
Yes.
And how did you tell him?
I just walked up to him and he said, I'm Al Maddox. And I said, yes, I know. I said, you know Jack Revel? And he said, yes, I do. And I said, you're kin to Jack Revel? He said, yes, I am. I said, so am I. We are cousins.
And was there any type of emotion involved after?
Well, it was kind of nice to meet a long-lost relative again.
It's a small world, isn't that true?
It's always been small here on the plaza.
And Mr. Maddox, how do you feel about that?
Man, I'm telling you.
And don't you think we even favor?
I'm tickled to death. Feel great.
Something about the best-looking cousin that you've ever had, isn't that true?
All the rest of them,
My $20 wasn't good enough for your lunch, is that what we're saying here?
$20?
The people, everyone looked up, and I said, well, why don't you just announce it over the PA system? And then she came back and she said, here's the 20, and Chuck Brim said, is that all she charges? And he got popped for
Do
that.
you want me to give you my answer to that? There's only three things wrong with that, Mark. Number one, it's not for sale. Number two, if it was for sale, you couldn't afford it. Number three, if it was for sale, and you could afford it, you couldn't stand it.
So if the fire's too hot, the fire's too hot, so I might as well just stay out of the kitchen is what you're saying.
Or grow up.
Well, I'm
Okay.
not,
I would like to close by saying thank you for joining me, and I would like to thank the following authors who have inspired me on this subject. Mark Lane for his fine books and videos, especially Two Men in Dallas, and Penn Jones Jr. for his books on the Forgive My Grief series. Also Harold Weisberg for his Whitewash series and Postmortem, in which he has written about Robert Barrett. Also Gary Shaw and Larry Harris, who co-authored the book Cover Up, which also detailed this investigation. Also Jim Mars for his work in Crossfire, and Harrison Livingstone and Robert Groden for their work in High Treason, and Craig Zerbel for his fine book The Texas Connection, and who also did work pertaining to this subject. I would like to give a special thanks to Stan Serzin, who worked with me on this project step for step, and who has done quite a bit of work in this field for many years. And also Jerry Robertson, who went to great lengths to get many of the photos that you have seen about Robert Barrett. I would also like to thank Larry Sneed, who inspired me to contact a lot of policemen and who gave me some of the contacts that I got in Dallas. Also, I would like to thank Todd Vaughn and Craig Chacon, Joe Melcher and Hal Verb, Keith Preston, and also Mr. Jack White for his help, and witnesses Al Maddox and Malcolm Summers. And I would also like to thank the JFK Center in Dallas. Thank you.